The price of wanting more. The day Nina buried her father, she made a promise over his grave that she would never be poor again. She was 16 then. Standing in red Enugu soil, wearing her only good dress, a yellow cotton thing that had been washed so many times the color had started giving up. Her mother stood beside her, eyes dry from too much crying, hands folded like she was holding herself together with her own fingers. The neighbors came. They ate the food. They said the right words. Then they left. And when the last person walked out of that compound, Nina's mother turned to her and said, quietly, almost like a prayer, "We are on our own now." Those 4 words carved themselves into Nina's chest like a blade. On our own. For 8 years, Nina lived by those words. She watched her mother sell groundnuts by the roadside, watched her patch the same roof every rainy season, watched her drink Gary at night and call it dinner. And Nina carried all of it, every hungry morning, every torn school shoe, every time a classmate laughed at her bag, she carried it and she filed it. Not with bitterness. With fuel. She was going to get out. She did not know how. But she knew Lagos was where it happened. She had seen it on her phone. She had seen the photos, the videos, the girls in short skirts stepping out of black cars, the apartments with white walls and marble floors, the plates of food that cost more than her mother's weekly earnings. She had seen it all. And she believed it. Every single pixel of it. What she did not see was what the camera never showed. Nina arrived in Lagos on a Tuesday morning with one bag, 45,000 naira, and a confidence that most people spend years trying to build. She was 24 years old. Her face was the kind that made people look twice, not because of makeup or clothes, but because there was something about the way she held herself, a fire behind her eyes that felt both dangerous and magnetic. Her childhood friend Clara had moved to Lagos 5 years earlier. Clara was 2 years older, calmer, the kind of woman who planned before she acted. She had built herself a small but solid life working as a personal chef for wealthy families on Lagos Island. Not flashy, not Instagram-worthy, but real. Clara was waiting at the park when Nina's bus pulled in. She had brought water and a beef roll wrapped in foil. The kind of thing only someone who actually cared about you would think to do. Nina hugged her, laughed, and immediately started looking around at the city with wide eyes, the way a child looks at a fair, not seeing danger, only light. "This place is mad," Nina said, neck craning at everything. "It is," Clara said simply. "Call me. Let's go home." Clara's apartment was in Yaba. Second floor of a compound with a blue gate that never fully closed. 1 bedroom, a sitting room with a fan that worked on Tuesdays, a small kitchen that smelled of cumin and fried onions. Everything was clean. Orderly. Small. Nina stood in the middle of the sitting room and smiled. With her mouth only. Inside, something whispered, "This is not enough." She did not say it. Clara had given her a key, cleared the wardrobe for her, bought new bedsheets. Nina swallowed the feeling and said, "It is beautiful, Clara. Thank you." Clara tried to help her settle. Within a week, she had connected Nina with her catering company, a woman named Mrs. Bello who ran events and needed extra hands. The pay was 12,000 naira per event. Not much. But it was something. Nina worked 3 events and earned 36,000 naira. She watched rich women walk past her holding champagne glasses that cost more than her salary. She watched men in Italian shoes tip the DJ 20,000 naira without blinking. And something began to rot inside her. Not her body. Not yet. Her patience. "I am serving people who have the same 24 hours I have," she told Clara one Sunday night. "How are they eating like that and I am carrying their plates?" Clara looked up from the pot she was stirring. "Because they started years before you arrived. Some of them failed for years before they ate like that." "I don't have years, Clara." "Why not? You are 24. 24 is late in this Lagos. Have you seen the girls on Instagram? They are 22, 23. Cars. Apartments. Everything." Clara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "And have you seen what some of them do to get those things?" Nina did not answer. She was already scrolling. It was at an event in Lekki, a birthday party for some oilman's wife, that Nina met Bisi. BC was 26, Lagos bred, the kind of woman who moved through a room like she owned it. She wore a bodycon dress that fit like it had been poured on her. Her hips were wide, her waist sharp, her confidence the kind that cost a lot of money to buy. She caught Nina staring. "First time at one of these?" BC asked, not unkindly. "Is it that obvious?" BC smiled. "Only to those of us who remember being you." They talked for 20 minutes, long enough for Nina to feel something she had not felt since arriving in Lagos. Scene. BC got her number. They began to meet on weekends. And slowly, like water finding cracks in stone, BC's world began seeping into Nina's. BC did not have a job that Nina could identify. But she had everything else: a one-bedroom apartment in Lekki Phase 1, a wardrobe of clothes that all had tags from places Nina had only seen online, a group of friends who only went to rooftop bars and beach clubs where a bottle of water cost 2,000 naira. "How?" Nina asked her one evening, watching the sun melt into the Lagos lagoon from a rooftop in Etiosa. BC sipped her drink slowly, smiled like she was deciding how much to reveal. Then she tilted her head and looked at Nina from the side. "You are beautiful," she said. "But Lagos does not reward beautiful alone." "Then what does it reward?" "Strategy." She said nothing else that night. But she had planted the seed. Nina began to change. Not all at once. First, it was just the way she dressed. She borrowed pieces from BC, tighter fits, shorter hems, higher heels. She updated her Instagram. Posted a photo from the rooftop bar. Got 300 new followers in 2 days. The likes came fast, the comments faster, the messages in her inbox fastest of all. Men she had never met calling her the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. Men with blue-ticked accounts asking if they could take her to dinner. She did not reply immediately. BC had taught her that. The morning Nina went to the clinic, she left the apartment before Clara woke up. She left a note on the kitchen table. Gone for a checkup. Back by evening. Short. Careful. A lie dressed up as nothing. The clinic was on a back street in Adja, tucked between a printing shop and a spare parts dealer. The sign outside was new, white letters, blue background, professional enough to look at quickly and not question. Inside was cool from an air conditioner that was doing its best. There were 4 other women in the waiting room. 2 were on their phones. 1 was praying quietly, lips moving without sound. 1 was asleep. Dr. Felix was a small man, 50s, with reading glasses pushed up on his forehead and the unhurried manner of someone very comfortable with what he was doing. He asked her questions. She answered. He showed her photos. She nodded. He explained the process in simple, confident language. Nothing about what he said made her afraid. That should have been the first sign. She paid. She signed. She lay down. Clara knew something was wrong when Nina was not back by evening. She called. Nina did not pick up. She called again. Nothing. She messaged BC, who she had always been polite to but never trusted. BC said she did not know where Nina was. At 10 that night, Nina called. Her voice was thin and strange. "Clara," she said. "I need you to come to an address in Adja." The silence between them lasted only 2 seconds, but Clara would remember those 2 seconds for the rest of her life. "What did you do?" she said. A long pause. Then, "Just come. Please." Clara found her in a recovery house 3 streets from the clinic. 8 women in a room with 3 fans and not enough beds. Some were groaning. Some were on their phones. Nina was in the corner bed, wrapped in a sheet, her face wet. Clara did not shout. She sat down on the edge of the thin mattress and looked at Nina without speaking. Nina could not hold eye contact. She looked at the wall. At the floor. Anywhere else. "When?" Clara finally said. "This morning." "How much?" Nina told her. Clara breathed out slowly through her nose. "How are you feeling?" "Like I have been hit by a bus," Nina said. Then she almost laughed. "Almost. Good," Clara said quietly. Not cruelly. Just honestly. Because that is what this is. She stayed all night. She brought food from a nearby spot, helped Nina move to a more comfortable position, spoke to the nurse on duty 3 times. She did not sleep. When morning came, she helped Nina into a taxi and brought her back to the apartment. And for 2 weeks, it seemed like it might be all right. Nina recovered. Or seemed to. She stayed indoors, ate Clara's food, winced when she moved too fast. But after 2 weeks, she stood in front of the mirror and saw the results, and something in her face changed. The fire came back. The new shape was dramatic. Exactly what she had seen in the before and after photos. Wide, rounded, cinched at the middle. A body that Lagos would reward. She uploaded 1 photo. 500 new followers in a day. Deo came to see her. Stood back and looked at her and said, "You didn't need it, but it works." She was back. For 6 weeks, Nina lived the dream she had carried from Enugu like a second skeleton. Different restaurants. Weekend escapes. Gifts. Attention. Men looking at her. Women looking at her. Her inbox filling up like a dam with no outlet. She told Clara she was fine. She told herself she was fine. She sent her mother 20,000 naira. The first time in months. She stood at her window one evening, looking at the Lagos skyline beginning to light up as the sun went down, and thought, "I did it." She had not done it. She had merely delayed it. The smell came first. She noticed it on a Wednesday, 3 weeks before she was ready to notice anything was wrong. A faint something. She thought it was the drain. She poured bleach down the bathroom drain. The smell remained. She thought it was her laundry. She washed everything. Still there. On Saturday morning, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror and tilted her head and looked at the left side of the surgical site. Something was wrong. The skin looked different. A small patch, maybe the size of her thumb, that was darker than the rest. Slightly swollen. When she pressed it gently, pain shot up her side so sharp she grabbed the sink with both hands. She stood there for a long time, looking at herself. Then she closed her eyes. Then she called Clara. Clara came out of her room without a word, stood behind Nina, and looked at the sight in the mirror. Her face was completely still. The kind of still that costs you something. She touched the edges of it carefully, felt the heat radiating off the skin, watched Nina flinch. "How long?" Clara asked. "I noticed it 3 days ago." Nina. "I thought it would go away." Clara said nothing. She went to her room, came back with her bag, and said, "We are going to the clinic." "It might be nothing." "It is not nothing. Let's go." Dr. Felix looked at it, prescribed antibiotics, and told her to come back in a week if it did not improve. It did not improve. Within 8 days, the patch had grown. The pain came at night now, waking her up from sleep, wrapping around her side like a fist squeezing. She went back to the clinic. Dr. Felix added a second antibiotic. Told her to rest. Told her not to worry. She worried. By the 3rd week, the smell was impossible to ignore. It had seeped into her sheets, her pillow, her clothes. She woke up one morning and found a wet patch on the mattress and could not stop shaking. Clara was already awake. She had not been sleeping properly in days. She came and sat beside Nina on the floor and said nothing. Just put her arm around her. That was when Nina finally cried. Not the careful crying she had done before, the kind where you cover your mouth and blink fast. This was the kind of crying that had no edges. That came from somewhere before language. "I am scared," she said. Clara held her tighter. "I know. Clara, I'm really scared." "I know, Nina. I know." They went to a Real hospital. Not the clinic in Aja. A proper hospital on the mainland with a reception desk and a doctor who had certificates on the wall behind her. Dr. Amora was 40, small-framed, with the patient but serious manner of someone who had seen too much and refused to stop caring. She examined the wound for a long time without speaking. Then she straightened and looked at Nina. "This is an infection," she said. "It is deep. The antibiotic you were given is not strong enough and it has been running too long without proper treatment. The tissue here is beginning to break down." Nina stared at her. "What does that mean?" Clara asked from the chair beside the bed. "It means we need to treat this aggressively. Today. And I need to tell you, the clinic where this surgery was performed, I need you to give me that address. Why? Dr. Amora was quiet for a moment. Because the suture work I am looking at right now was not done by a trained surgeon. And I have seen this pattern before. The room went very quiet. Nina turned her face toward the wall. The pattern before. Those 3 words landed like a stone in still water. What came out over the next 48 hours would change everything. Dr. Amora made a phone call to a colleague who worked in public health. That colleague ran a check on the clinic in Aja and came back with information that arrived like cold water thrown on a burning face. Dr. Felix was not a doctor. His real name was Felix Ojunlami. He had trained as a nurse, had worked in a proper clinic for 6 years, and had then gone on his own. He had watched enough procedures to know the steps. He had bought the equipment second-hand. He had made a sign and opened a clinic and told women he could give them the body they wanted for a price they could afford. And it had worked. For years, it had worked. Until it did not. Nina was not the first. She was, according to what Dr. Amora's colleague found, the 7th woman in 18 months to come to a real hospital after leaving Felix's clinic with an infection that had not been treated quickly enough. 3 of the other 6 had recovered. 2 were still in treatment. 1 had not made it. Nina lay in her hospital bed and listened to this and felt the world tilt under her. She had not been careless with a licensed doctor. She had handed her body to a man with a sign and a mop and a lie. And Deo. She called Deo the morning after she was admitted. His phone rang once. Twice. Went to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. She texted. I am in the hospital. Please come. 3 hours passed. He replied. Sorry to hear. Which hospital? I will try to come. He never came. She called BC. BC picked up, said the right words. Oh God, are you serious? I am so sorry. And then said she was in the middle of something and would call back. BC never called back. The inbox that had been full for 6 weeks went quiet in less than 48 hours. The same way a generator goes silent when fuel runs out. Sudden. Complete. Final. It was Clara who sat by the hospital bed every evening after her workday ended. Clara who brought food in small containers because she knew the hospital meals would not be enough. Clara who spoke to the nurses when Nina was too tired or too embarrassed or too deep in pain to speak for herself. Clara who went home at midnight and came back at 7 in the morning before going to work. Clara who paid the first deposit on the hospital bill when Nina's money ran out without telling her until after. One evening, Nina looked at her and said, "Why are you doing this?" Clara looked up from the bag she was unpacking. What kind of question is that? A real one. I lied to you. I didn't listen to you. I made your life harder. Why are you still here? Clara sat down slowly. Thought for a moment. Because you are my person, she said. You don't choose when to show up for your person. Nina looked away. Pressed her lips together. I keep thinking, Nina said, about all the times I looked at your apartment and thought it was not enough. I thought you were playing small. I thought you were afraid. Maybe I was, Clara said honestly. You were not afraid. You were wise. There is a difference. Nina swallowed. I did not know the difference. Clara reached out and held her hand. For a long time, neither of them said anything. The ceiling fan above them turned slowly. The corridor outside was its usual chaos, nurses, families, the sound of someone somewhere crying. But in that small room, there was something that felt like peace. The doctor told Nina the truth on a Thursday morning. She had been in hospital for 11 days. The aggressive antibiotics had slowed the infection but not stopped it. The tissue on the left side of the surgical site was compromised beyond what medication alone could fix. The implant on that side needed to come out. And when it came out, the repair work required would be extensive and expensive and was not guaranteed. How expensive? Nina asked. Dr. Amora named a figure. Nina looked at the ceiling. Did the calculation in her head in about 3 seconds. Could not come close. Not even with Clara's help. Not even if she sold everything she owned. And if I cannot pay for the surgery? She asked. Dr. Amora was quiet for a moment. Then we manage it. But managing it only slows things down. It does not reverse the damage. The longer we wait, the less there is to work with. Nina nodded like she understood. She understood. After the doctor left, she lay still for a long time. The window to her right showed a square of Lagos sky, white and heavy with heat, the kind of sky that has no opinion about what happens beneath it. Birds she could not name moved across it and disappeared. She thought about her father's grave. She thought about the promise she had made over it. She thought about the yellow dress and the washed-out color and the neighbors eating the food before they left. And she thought about something she had never let herself think before, that maybe the promise she made that day was the wrong one. That maybe what her 16-year-old self had heard, "We are on our own," was not a call to war. Maybe it was just a mother trying not to collapse in front of her daughter. Maybe on our own had never meant at any cost. Clara came that evening with Clara's mother on the phone. They had spoken, Clara and Mama Obijeli, without Nina knowing. Clara had described the situation carefully, gently, the way you carry bad news over long distance without dropping it. Mama Obijeli had listened. She had been silent on the other end for a very long time. Then she had said, "Put her on the phone." Nina took the phone from Clara with a hand that was not quite steady. "Mama," she said. Her mother's voice came through the phone and Nina's face cracked wide open. Not because her mother said anything harsh. That was what broke her, because she said nothing harsh at all. She said, "My child. I am here. I have always been here." That was all. Just that. And something in Nina that had been held rigid since she was 16 years old, since that red soil and that yellow dress and that four-word sentence, just let go. She cried so hard the nurse came in to check on her. Clara sat in the chair by the bed and stared at her own hands and thought about things she would not say out loud for a very long time. The decision to go home did not come quickly. It came the way difficult decisions usually come, slowly, after everything else has been tried. Nina spent 2 more weeks in the hospital. The doctors managed the infection well enough to stabilize her. The implant on the affected side was removed in a procedure that cost Clara her entire emergency savings, a fact Clara revealed only months later, and only when pressed. The wound was left open and dressed twice daily. It was deep and ugly and required a kind of care that Lagos, in its daily noise and rush, had no patience for. During those weeks, things happened that would matter later. The first, Dr. Amora filed a report with the health authorities about Felix Ojunlami's clinic. Within 3 weeks, the clinic in Aja was shut down. Felix himself disappeared before they could find him, into the same Lagos that swallows everyone eventually. 2 other women came forward. A small story appeared on a news website. Nobody shared it much. Lagos moved on. The second, BC sent a text while Nina was still in hospital. Long, carefully written, full of "I feel so terrible and I had no idea and please let me know if there is anything I can do." Nina read it 3 times. Did not reply. Set the phone down. Looked at the ceiling. The message was the words of someone trying to feel less guilty, not the words of someone who actually cared. She had learned to tell the difference. Finally. Too late. But finally. The third, Deo sent a voice note, 23 seconds long, in which he said he had heard she was unwell, hoped she got better soon, and that Lagos was rough sometimes and these things happen. His voice was not unkind. It was simply the voice of a man for whom she had been, from the beginning, a season. Not a person. A season. And the season had ended. The fourth thing was the most important. Clara lost a client. A family on the island, the Adeyemis, who had used Clara's catering services for 4 years, sent a message through their housekeeper saying that they were taking a break from private catering. Clara knew what it meant. Someone had said something. That someone was one of Beese's friends, a woman named Shade who had visited the apartment once and seen Nina in the state she was in and apparently could not stop herself from telling people. The Adeyemis were Clara's largest contract. Their monthly payment was more than half of Clara's income. When Clara told Nina, she did it with her voice flat and her face still and her hands folded on her knee, the same posture as when their fathers used to punish them as children, the posture of someone absorbing something without showing how much it hurt. Nina stared at her. "Clara. It is fine." "It is not fine." You lost your contract because of me. I will find another one. Clara, look at me. Clara looked up. And there it was, the thing she had been holding behind her eyes for weeks. Not anger. Not resentment. Just exhaustion. And love. The kind of love that costs so much it should have a name that is also a price. I'm so sorry, Nina said. Clara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I know you are. But being sorry does not bring the contract back. And I am not telling you this to punish you. I am telling you because you need to understand what happened here. Not just to your body. To everything around you. When we make choices, other people carry the weight too. That is the part nobody tells you when they show you the before and after photos. Nina could not speak. The words would not come up past the thing sitting on her chest. I will be all right, Clara said, softer now. I always am. That is what boring, slow, honest work gives you, the ability to rebuild. But you need to think about what you want your rebuilding to look like. Nina went home on a Saturday morning. Not on a bus this time. Clara drove her in a borrowed car, a small Toyota with a cracked dashboard and a seat that tilted slightly to the right. The journey from Yaba to the motor park was 20 minutes. They spent most of it not talking. Not because there was nothing to say. Because there was too much, and silence was the only container big enough. At the park, Clara helped her carry her bag to the bus. Nina's bag was lighter than when she had arrived. Not because she had less, she had more, technically, more clothes and more things. But something had been removed from the inside of her, something that used to take up a lot of space and weigh a great deal and had no name until now. Pride. The dangerous kind. I will call when I get there, Nina said. I know you will. And Clara, do not thank me again. I'm going to anyway. Clara almost smiled. Nina said, you are the only real thing that happened to me in Lagos. Everything else was a screen. Clara pulled her in and held her. Tightly. For a long time. The bus horn blew. They separated. Nina climbed in. Settled by the window. The bus moved. Clara stood in the dust of the park with her hands at her sides, watching until the bus was gone. Then she turned and walked back to the car. She sat in it for 10 minutes without starting the engine. Then she started it, pulled into traffic, and went back to work. Enugu received Nina the way it always received its children. Without ceremony. Without judgment. Just open. Her mother was waiting at the compound gate, not the roadside. Nina had not told her which bus exactly, so she had just waited at the gate since morning. She was wearing a blue wrapper and a faded blouse, and her hair was not set because she had not had time to set it because she had been at the gate since morning. When she saw Nina step out of the Okada that had brought her from the park, she pressed both hands over her mouth. Nina was thinner. Anyone could see it. The surgical site was hidden under her clothes, but the weight was gone from her face and her walk had changed, slower, careful, like someone who had learned not to trust the ground. Her mother did not cry. She walked forward and put both arms around her daughter and held her the way you hold something you thought you had lost. Completely. With the whole body. Nina closed her eyes. She smelled the compound, red dust, and cooking smoke and the mango tree near the wall and the particular scent of her mother's soap, and it hit her like a wave. All of it. Every day she had spent being ashamed of this place. Every time she had looked at photos of Lagos and thought that is where real life is. Every time she had scrolled past this mother's calls because she was too busy building a life she thought was better. I am home, Mama, she said. Her voice cracked down the middle. Her mother held her tighter. I know. I know. I know. The first weeks were hard in a different way than Lagos had been hard. Lagos hard was noise and competition and the feeling that you were always almost there but never quite. This hard was quiet. It was waking up in the room where she had grown up and staring at the cracked ceiling and not knowing who she was without the person she had been trying to become. It was the daily wound dressing, her mother doing it every morning with gentle hands and a face that showed nothing, the way a mother absorbs pain so her child does not have to. It was the neighbors who came and looked with their eyes and left with their words half swallowed. But it was also something else. Something she had not expected. It was rest. Not the rest of exhaustion. The rest of being known. Her mother knew her, the real Nina, the 16-year-old girl in the yellow dress, the child who used to climb the udara tree at the back of the compound and eat the fruit without bringing any down. She did not need to perform here. Did not need to hold herself at a particular angle for a particular light. She could just be inside her own skin. Even if that skin was healing from something that could have killed her. A woman from the local church came twice a week. Her name was Mrs. Nwosu and she had been a nurse before she retired. She dressed the wound properly, with the patience and thoroughness that Dr. Felix had never had. She said little. She worked with her hands. She told Nina once, simply, "You are healing. Slowly, but truly." Slowly, but truly. Nina wrote it on the inside cover of a notebook her mother had bought her. An uncle visited from Onitsha, her father's younger brother, Emeka, a quiet man who had worked in the same printing business for 20 years without complaint. He brought a bag of oranges and sat in the sitting room and told her about her father. Things she had never known. How her father had also wanted to leave once, in his 20s, had planned to go to Port Harcourt and find oil money. How he had packed a bag and gotten to the motor park and sat there for 3 hours and come home. How he had never told anyone why. Did he regret it? Nina asked. Uncle Emeka peeled an orange slowly. He told me once, he said, that the men he had been going to meet, 2 of them died young chasing money in bad places. One of them is in prison. He said he was not smart. He said he was just lucky. He handed her a slice of orange. But he said the real luck was what he came back to. Nina looked at the slice of orange in her hand. Your mother, she said. Uncle Emeka nodded. Your mother. You. This compound. This tree. He tilted his head toward the window. He said small things done with love last longer than big things done in a hurry. Nina did not trust herself to speak. She ate the orange. It was 3 months after coming home that Nina finally opened her Instagram. She had not touched it since the hospital. She opened it now, sat with it for a long time. Hundreds of unread messages, mostly strangers who had noticed her silence and assumed it was strategy. A few genuinely concerned. One from a girl who said she had been about to book Dr. Felix's clinic when she read a comment somewhere that mentioned the shutdown, and it had stopped her. That one Nina sat with for a long time. She replied. Told the girl what had happened. Not everything, but enough. Said, be careful who you trust with your body. The price is higher than any number they quote you. The girl replied with a long, shaking message of gratitude. Nina read it. Set her phone down. Looked at the mango tree outside the window. Then she picked up the notebook with slowly, but truly written inside the cover and she started writing. Not for Instagram. Not for followers. Just for herself. First. The story of a girl from Enugu who went to Lagos carrying a promise and came home carrying a wound and found that the wound, when it healed properly, left room for something different. Something that did not need an audience. She called Clara on a Sunday evening, 6 months after leaving Lagos. Clara picked up on the second ring. The sound of her voice, steady, warm, carrying that particular mixture of knowing and patience that Nina would recognize in the dark, hit Nina somewhere behind the sternum. How is Enugu? Clara asked. Green, Nina said. There are so many trees. I forgot. Lagos makes you forget there are trees. It makes you forget a lot of things. A pause. Then Clara said, how is the sight? Healing, Nina said. Mrs. Nwosu says 2 more months maybe. No complications now. I am glad. Me too. Nina looked out the window at the last of the evening light sitting on the compound wall. Clara, I want to ask you something. Ask. That catering job. The one you had for 3 years before the Adeyemis. How did you get it? Clara was quiet for a moment. A woman I cooked for at an event recommended me to her friend. Who recommended me to someone else. It took 2 years of regular events before someone trusted me with a full contract. 2 years. Almost 3, actually. And was it boring? During those 2 years? Clara laughed, a short, real laugh. Extremely boring. I woke up at 4 in the morning. I stood in strange kitchens. I peeled things. I cleaned things. I went home tired in ways I could not describe. Every week for 2 years. But you stayed. Because I could see that I was building something. Small and slow, but real. And real things last. A pause. That is the only thing I know for sure. Nina breathed. I want to come back, she said. Not to chase. To build. The way you built. Another pause. Then Clara said, quietly, I know. I was waiting for you to say it. 9 months after leaving Lagos, Nina came back. This time, no bag full of borrowed confidence. She came back with a food flask, a notebook, and a mind that had been through something most people never come back from and had decided to build instead of collapse. She moved back into Clara's apartment, took the second bedroom again, and enrolled in a proper culinary training program that Clara had quietly researched and registered her for months in advance. The program was 6 months. It was rigorous and unglamorous and involved enormous amounts of washing up. Nina was the oldest in her cohort by 2 years. She did not care. She showed up at 7 every morning and she stayed until the instructor sent them home. She learned to fail without leaving. To start again without drama. She was not impressive at first. She burned things. She mislabeled things. She was corrected in front of the class twice in the same week and walked home both times without speaking. But she came back the next morning. Because slowly, but truly was the only rule she was living by now. BC messaged once. 3 months after Nina returned to Lagos. The message was friendly, breezy, as if nothing had happened, as if time were just a thing that smoothed out all the rough edges. She was having a small gathering, she said. Just a few people. She would love for Nina to come. Nina read it. She did not feel anger. She had thought she would, had rehearsed anger for it, the way you prepare a speech for something you know is coming. But what she actually felt was closer to pity. A familiar sadness for a person who had never learned to give without calculation. She replied once, simply, "Take care of yourself, BC." Then she archived the conversation and did not think about it again. Deo she never heard from. That silence, strangely, was the easiest one to carry. Near the end of her training, Nina submitted a short food story to a small online magazine that wrote about Nigerian food culture. It was about her mother's palm oil, the particular red of it, the way her mother made it from scratch, the smell that filled their compound during processing, the secret pride of something made entirely by hand. She did not expect anything. The magazine published it. It went mildly viral among food lovers. Small numbers, by Lagos Instagram standards. But real ones. People who had read it and felt something, not just seen it. A woman in Abuja wrote to say it reminded her of her grandmother. A young man in the UK wrote to say he had not cried thinking about Nigeria in years. Nina's phone was quiet. And for the first time, that felt like exactly the right thing. A year after she had lain in that hospital bed listening to a doctor name a figure she could not afford, Nina opened a small food page. Not to be an influencer. Not to get the attention of men in white agbada. Just to share the food she was learning to make properly. Slowly, correctly, with the full weight of care. She called it Slowly Built. Clara picked the color. A warm terracotta, the same shade as Enugu soil. The bio read, "Food made honestly. For people who know that things worth having take time." It grew the way real things grow, not in explosions, but in steady accumulation. 100 followers. 300. 1,000. People who came not because of a body or a drama or a before and after, but because the food was good and the voice behind it was true. One of Clara's former clients found the page and reached out. Asked if they could collaborate on a private catering event. Clara and Nina planned it together, in Clara's small kitchen, over 3 evenings. They argued about the menu twice. Clara won both times. The event went well. Another booking came the week after. It was not the life Nina had imagined on the bus from Enugu. It was better. Not because it was flashy or fast or loud. But because when she came home at night, she did not have to check her reflection to remember who she was. She already knew. And knowing that, really knowing it, in your bones and your hands and your quiet evening, was worth more than anything Lagos had shown her on a screen. She called her mother every Sunday. Always at 6 in the evening, when the sun in Enugu was going down behind the compound wall and her mother would be sitting outside in the cooling air, shelling something or mending something, doing the small useful work of a life built on love. They talked about food, about the neighbors, about which tree had fruited, about small, true things. Her mother asked once, carefully, whether Lagos had been worth it. Nina thought about the answer for a long time. Long enough that her mother said, "Are you there?" "I'm here," Nina said. "I'm thinking." She looked at her right hand, the one she had wrapped around 100 pot handles in the past year, the one that had written slowly, but truly inside a notebook cover, the one that had held her mother's at a grave when she was 16 and made a promise she did not yet understand. "It cost too much," Nina said finally. "But what I know now, I could not have known any other way. So I do not know how to answer." Her mother was quiet. Then she said, "Your father used to say that the most expensive lessons are the ones that teach you who you are." Nina pressed her lips together. "He was right," she said. "He usually was," her mother said. And Nina heard the smile in it. She went home for Christmas, walked into the compound and stood still for a moment and breathed it in. The smoke and the dust and the particular mango tree and mother's soap smell of the only place she had never been able to be anyone other than herself. Her mother was in the kitchen, frying plantain. The sound and the smell hit Nina at exactly the same moment and she stood in the doorway and could not move. Her mother turned, saw her, opened her arms. Nina walked in. The world will always show you a screen, a filter, a before and after. It will show you women who seem to have arrived instantly, men who seem never to have struggled, bodies built overnight, lives assembled in one swipe. It will not show you the infection, the abandoned inbox, the friend crying in the bathroom so you won't hear, the contract lost, the savings gone, the mother's face when her child comes home carrying something that should not be carried. It will not show you what was paid. Nina paid with her body, her pride, and nearly her life, not because she was foolish, but because she was young and hungry and nobody had told her that there is no shortcut to a life that actually belongs to you. Build slowly. Guard your body. Honor the friend who shows up with food when the inbox goes quiet. Call your mother back. And remember this: contentment is not the enemy of ambition. It is the foundation of it. The things that last were never fast. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, and I will see you at the next one.